back. Welcome back. We hope that you enjoyed the networking session and getting to speak to some of the exhibitors in the hall and really get a feel for different opportunities and what's available to you. My name is LeVar Thomas, and welcome to the Black Men in International Service panel. I'll turn it over to you, Shua, to make your introduction as well.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Shua, and I'm a Peace Corps recruiter based in Washington, D.C.
Awesome. So you are in for a treat for this panel. We have James Ham, Savin Jackson, and Nakia Callahan who will be joining us on this panel to speak about international opportunities from the Peace Corps to the Rangel Graduate Fellowship and the Pickering Fellowship and even Fulbright Fellowship. And we're going to have a candid conversation with the panelists today. So I'll just turn it over to the panelists to make their formal introductions. So we can start with you, James.
Greetings, everybody. Greetings from Pretoria, South Africa, the Rainbow Nation of the continent. I am currently serving as the Peace Corps Country Director in South Africa. Again, my name is James Ham. Pleasure to be on this panel.
And go ahead, Savin.
Hey. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Savin Jackson. I am currently a program manager with the Charles B. Rangel International Affairs Program at Howard University, and excited to be engaging with you all today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Dr. Nakia Callahan Banks. I'm currently in Southern California. I'm the founder of Colorbird Institute, an organization that educates students on how to apply for scholarships. And I'm also an assistant professor of history at Victor Valley College, where I teach African American, U.S., and women's history.
Awesome. So before we kind of get into the discussion, I'm sure many folks are hearing about some of these programs for the very first time. So if you all want to just kind of share your story into your journey in discussing the Peace Corps, discussing the Rangel program, and discussing Fulbright and the work that you're doing, Dr. Banks. So we can go from there and then we'll go into a more formal discussion.
Sure. So my study abroad journey actually started at 16. As a junior in high school, I was taking German language courses. A teacher encouraged me to apply for some scholarship money to actually go to Germany and be an exchange student. And I won the scholarship. And before I knew it, I was on a plane. And little did I know at 16 that I would fall in love with traveling, and one opportunity would open after another, just from that being in a foreign language classroom. Looking back now, I can see how studying abroad at 16 set me up for the Fulbright, to be competitive for a prestigious award as the Fulbright. And so I continued to take German throughout high school, undergraduate, and then when I pursued my PhD. And my PhD work actually took me back to Germany, which is how I ended up applying for the Fulbright, because I discovered the German language diaries of an African-American woman named Mary Church Terrell, who was a pretty prominent civil rights and women's activist at the turn of the 20th century. And so here I was, this young African-American woman who had fallen in love with foreign languages, with German, and had discovered that there was a history to this, that I was a part of this legacy. And so that set me up for the Fulbright. I was able to make a strong case for why I should be studying Black history in Germany on a Fulbright. And here I am today.
Wow. Talk about the seeds being planted at the age of 16. That's really powerful. Thank you, Dr. Banks. And James.
Well, I think that's number 16 is pretty common. And it's been a long time since I've been 16. But it was 16 that I was sitting in my grandfather's church, actually. And there was a missionary that used to come through our church all the time, and he would tell about his experiences traveling around the world. And I was like, I sat in awe of listening to his stories about his worldly travel, and it kind of planted a seed. So I knew I wanted to travel and be able to see the world. Well, after high school, I joined the U.S. Navy and was stationed aboard an aircraft carrier. And I had a chance to travel to France, Israel, Spain, Turkey, Jamaica, Barbados. And I remembered every time I pulled into a foreign port, I would say, you know what? The next time I travel to a foreign country, I want to be able to stay longer than a 2-day Liberty Port visit so I can learn more about the people, the culture, and the country where I was visiting. So I got out of the Navy after 4 years and started teaching for a couple years and met a young lady who told me about the Peace Corps. She was a Peace Corps volunteer in Benin. And she told me about the program, her 2-year experience. And I said, that's it. That's exactly what I want to do. I called the Peace Corps recruiter, signed up. They enrolled me in a math program going to Guinea of West Africa. And Guinea at the time didn't have their own training program, so they sent everybody who's going to learn French to Senegal. You may recognize Senegal as one of the West African countries that just won the African Cup. Well, I had a chance to live with a homestay family, to learn French, Wolof, and West African way of life. And for me, that was the confirming decision that I had made the right choice to be able to join the Peace Corps and to start my international experience and understanding and life that pretty much destined my career and my life.
Wow. That's pretty powerful, James. You can go, Stephen.
Awesome. Great. So first I'll share a little bit about the Rangel program, and then I'll talk a little bit about my own personal story. And so to start with the Charles B. Rangel International Affairs Program, it's a U.S. Department of State funded program, and it's administered at Howard University in Washington, D.C. And so within the suite of the Rangel programs that we first have our Graduate Fellowship Program. And so the Graduate Fellowship Program is designed to promote excellence and diversity within the U.S. Department of State's Foreign Service Corps. And so fellows who are selected to receive the award receive up to $84,000 in graduate funding towards a 2-year degree. And they also have 2 summer internship opportunities, the first of which is on the Hill, so in Congress, and then the second of which is working at an embassy or consulate abroad to really get to understand kind of those inner workings of the State Department. And then upon completion of a graduate degree and passing through all the exams, as well as like suitability and security clearance, fellows then become foreign service officers and have a 5-year service obligation within the State Department. The second program that we have within the Rangel program is our summer enrichment program, which is for undergrad. So for sophomores to graduating seniors. And that's a 6-week summer experience that takes place in Washington, D.C. at Howard University's campus. And it's really designed to give undergrads a deeper understanding of careers and opportunities within the wider field of international affairs. And so in terms of kind of my own personal background, so originally I'm from Queens, New York, and then I had the opportunity to attend undergrad in a small rural Indiana at DePaul University, and that's where really my spark for international education really started. And so I had the opportunity to do a short-term abroad experience in China for 3 weeks, and that really opened my mind to the different possibilities and just a different kind of world outside of my own home in the U.S. And in New York and in Indiana. And then from there, having caught the travel bug, I realized, and also being interested in the world of religions, I knew I wanted to go abroad, but I just wasn't sure where. And then with the help of one of my advisors, I was able to choose India. And so I was able to spend a semester abroad in New Delhi, India, funded with the Gilman Scholarship from the State Department. And then after graduating, I was able to return to India again as a Fulbright scholar. And this time I was returning to India as an English teaching assistant. And so I was in Indian school and teaching classes 5 to 10. So a wide variety and a wide range of different students there. And that really solidified my understanding and wanting to pursue international education. And that led me to coming to DC, working as a study abroad advisor, working to manage different study abroad programs. And then that's where it led me now to being at Howard University with the Rangel program and the impactful work that it does to help change and have a more reflective foreign service core that mirrors what the United States looks like.
LeVar, if I could just jump back in and also add a little bit about the Peace Corps. And I know Shua has her background on mapping with the Peace Corps logo on it. But before the logo, in my home, there was a painting that was on my grandparents' wall. And that was the image of Martin Luther King, John F. Kennedy, and Jesus Christ. And if you had one of those photos, it was a pretty popular photo in pretty much every Southern home, pretty much. And not knowing the value and the work of John F. Kennedy, he is the one who created the Peace Corps. And I didn't learn that until later on in my life, and the purpose of the Peace Corps, and the doors that it would open, and the reason why he created that program, which I am honorably a part of right now. And so the Peace Corps, when I decided to join the Peace Corps, to find out it was a free program that would send you overseas. And his motto that started, ask not what your country can do for you, but for what you can do for your country. That theme of service, which resonated with me profoundly, pretty much started my journey. To find out, one, they were going to send me overseas to give me that opportunity to be able to travel. They were going to give me a stipend. They were going to teach me French. They were going to take care of my medical, dental, and all my annual leave. And they were going to give me the experience that money could not buy. The experience to be able to travel the world, live in a country, learn a culture, and be able to buy in and, engage in the Peace Corps theme of world peace and friendship. That resonated with me and confirmed that not only service, public service, and through volunteerism was going to be, a theme to my life, but being able to be able to see the world up close in all of its cultural reality, outside of my own norms in South Carolina and New Jersey, where I grew up, and to be able to see something different from where I lived. So Peace Corps for me has been my life, has been my work, has been my career, and it has really been the profound being for the person that I am. So I highly recommend the program, the agency, the work, the opportunity to be able to volunteer and be able to be a part of this program that pretty much changes lives, not only abroad, but personally for the individual themselves.
All right, thanks everyone. So to go back to what we heard earlier from Dr. Banks and James, mentioning that, that 16 is a special number. That's the first time you thought about going abroad. And even Savon, just your experience abroad. Love to hear. This question comes up a lot from individuals. How did your family and friends react to your decision and your interest in going abroad? Love to hear you dig deep and share us the stories that you experienced and perhaps some advice and wisdom you can pass on to other individuals who are a little concerned about breaking that news to their family and friends.
So initially, naturally, my parents and extended family were concerned that here was this 16-year-old who said, "I want to go live, across the Atlantic." I was the first in my family to have a passport. And so, rightly so, they were concerned because they themselves had not traveled very far outside of California. And so they were fearful of the unknown. They wanted me to be safe. They wanted me to be within arm's reach, if something were to happen. And so what I learned from that experience, it wasn't that they did not want me to have this wonderful experience, is that they needed to be well informed and they needed to be made comfortable about what I was getting myself into. And so I remember at 16, the program that I went through was AFS, American Field Service. Some of you may have heard of it. And Fulbright does something similar where they provide a wealth of information about the program, about the safety measures and procedures, about the expectations in terms of behavior of the students who are selected to go through the program. My mother specifically requested to have one of the representatives come to our home and have a sit-down conversation about what are you encouraging my daughter to get into. And I remember the representative who came was also was a mother who had sent her daughter at 16 to study abroad. And I bring that up because something that the Fulbright program does very well is utilize their alumni. Who are better to speak to the experience and to reassure worried mothers and friends about traveling abroad. And so, from that moment on, my mom was the biggest supporter. To this day, we laugh and joke that she's never traveled to Germany, but she wears German T-shirts and she has the coffee mugs, and you would think that she had been there herself. And so I would say if you are someone who kind of finds yourself in a similar situation, share the information with your family. Have them sit in on some of the webinars that the organizations provide. Fulbright is very good about providing webinars on what you can expect with study abroad, to open discussions sessions with alumni and those who are currently in the host country. I remember at my home university, we had a number of panels of Fulbright alumni. So I would encourage you to take advantage of that and invite your family to be a part of the experience. The more they feel a part of it, the more, they will support you. And, if anything, while you're abroad and you get homesick, they'll tell you to stay and to send them lots of goodies. So I would make them a part of the process.
I can jump in here. I am the oldest of four, and my parents were, when I joined the Navy, they knew that I had traveled and departed home, so they were somewhat used to me being able to live and be independent and travel on my own. And mind you, my parents are Southern. They were born in the South, and they moved to the North, New Jersey, where I was born. So pretty much I joke that the only international travel they knew was up and down Highway 95 from New Jersey to South Carolina. And so growing up on the East Coast, we had never really traveled outside the continental U.S., outside of the military. So when I told my father that I was going to join the Peace Corps and go to Africa, he asked the question, "Well, why are you going over there? There's plenty of work for you to do here." And I told him that I had a passion to be able to see something else outside of the United States, and it was pulling me to be able to go. It was difficult for my parents to see me departing again, but they accepted. My parents were divorced at the time, and I remember that when I left with my Peace Corps group, my mother was kind of struggling with just the confirmation and acceptance that going to Africa, the unknown which she had never known, that her oldest son was going, and possibly she didn't know if he's going to come back. And so, like many Peace Corps groups, we departed out of JFK. And as we were at the airport, and we were in the elevator going up to our departure entry, our departure gate, and there was a lady on the airport in the elevator with us, and she saw me and my entire group. Mind you, I was the only African American male in my group. And she asked, "Well, where are you guys going?" And I said, "We're going to Africa." And she grabbed my mother and she grabbed me. And she said, "That is a wonderful thing that you are doing." And I told her we were getting ready to join the Peace Corps. And she said, "You have made the greatest decision and investment that you could ever make in your life." That calmed the fears of my mother. That confirmed for me that it was the right decision that I was making to join the Peace Corps. It opened up it released a lot of anxiety from my mother that I was doing the right thing, because she had never heard of the Peace Corps before. And definitely she had never had anyone in the family. We had never had anyone in the family to go to Africa. But it helped be able to confirm my decision and relax her fears and be able to give her a better understanding of the purpose of the program and for my life. So.
Yeah, I would say in my experience as well too, I think for my parents and in particular for my mother, I think the idea of me just leaving New York City to go to rural Indiana was kind of a study abroad trip enough for her in terms of first figuring out like where Indiana was on the map once we had realized that that's where I was going to be going. And then once I had brought up to her my first experience going to China, she was like, "What are you doing there?" She's like, you already made it to Indiana. Like just like revel in that experience, like really just like dig deep into that. But she was like, "All right, like just do it and then come back." At least that was like 3 weeks, right? And then after I told her, I was like, "Well, I'm thinking about like going back again, but this time for a little bit longer, for 6 months." And then she was like, "Where now?" And then I was like, "Oh, like India." And then she was like, "What?" Like it was just like first China, Indiana, and now India. Like what is going on? And then the second question is like, how are you going to pay for this as well? She's like, you already got the base thing going on with school, the tuition, at least that's covered. But like, this seems a little bit extra on the side, And I would agree with my colleagues as well, too, in terms of like really trying to bring them into the experience and like having them help like understand like what are you doing, right, in terms of like this is like for work, and at least in terms of like the financial aspect, I was like, well, I'm like receiving this like grant from the government to help like pay for it, so like you don't have to worry about me like starving in another country, like I'm gonna be fine. And then I feel like by the time I decided that I was like going back again for the Fulbright, she was just like, all right, this I'm just starting to see that this may just be a trend with you in your life, which at this point it has become. And so I think it's more of that acclimating the parents and the family to understanding kind of like your ambitions and your goals and like how you see these types of experiences fitting into like where you see yourself down the line, and just telling them that like you want something different, and this is kind of a different experience to enrich you, and as well as like bringing back to your community as well, and like helping others as well too, in the veins of the volunteering service abroad as well too.
And I think that's, if I could comment, when people hear volunteer, they tend to look at the financial calculations of that title. And you getting out of college, knowing that you've had student loans or you have some debt that's paid, the first thing they want to see is, this job that you're going to have. So when you tell people that you're getting ready to go overseas to volunteer or take an internship or the Rangel program, um, it's difficult for them to be able to understand that. But I had to communicate to my family that this was an investment for me, a personal investment, and to develop some skills, some experiences that I had never had before. And I told them that, yes, the money will come, the opportunities will come, but for me, I wanted this experience. And I was sold through the opportunity that was going to be afforded to me through the Peace Corps program. It was so clearly outlined in the outcomes from what I've seen in former Peace Corps volunteers. And I knew that I wanted that experience too. So my parents did get a chance to understand that. And thankfully, my mom did get a chance to visit me in Africa. You know, it was her first time getting a passport and being able to travel and see me. And she got a chance to visit Cameroon. And we call that Africa in miniature. And it was one of the greatest experiences that she's had in her lifetime. And so I'm glad that I was able to afford her that opportunity and for her to be able to see what I saw through my experience here through the Peace Corps and in Africa.
I'm really glad you said that, James, because as you're sharing your story, I'm thinking about when my dad was asking me, like, why do you want to volunteer for 2 years when you can just continue working at the State House and make money? And I'm like, you don't understand this path I feel like I'm being led on. It feels like it's much bigger than myself. And, my dad came to realize how transformative the experience was for my life in ways that he couldn't really think about or he couldn't understand when he sees that, I'm going to Ghana, I'm going to Rwanda. And, I had the opportunity to serve in the Peace Corps in Rwanda from 2014 to 2016. And it was a scary decision for me because I'm working and then I get this email, you're getting placed in Rwanda. So you can imagine all of the thoughts going through my head, like, do I leave my job? What am I gonna do? I need to go back to New York. I'm gonna tell my family. So all of these thoughts is freaking me out to the point where I feel like maybe I shouldn't take advantage of this opportunity. Mm-hmm. Even though the acceptance letter is right there, and I'm like, it was this profound, unique opportunity. One, I didn't know anybody who looked like me who did it. Mm-hmm. All the recruiters I spoke to didn't look like me. They didn't come from Brooklyn, New York. They didn't come from the city. And I'm like, how do I identify with somebody if the people I'm speaking to don't look like me? So that was a struggle for me when I was making the decision. But I think one of the things that really drove me was anytime I would speak to somebody about the Peace Corps, they were like, oh man, I always wanted to do it, but I never got the chance to do it. I always wanted to travel and go to Africa. I always wanted, and I'm like, do I want to become someone who always wanted to do something and never got the chance to do it? And I think it's really taking that bet on yourself and really leaning into the experience that you're looking to have. So, thank you all for sharing that part of your journey. Yeah. So next, I want to go a little bit deeper into this conversation because, of course, it's great to have transformative experiences. It's great to travel, but of course, there's also challenges that come with living abroad as well. So I know that me being the only Black male in my group and going to Rwanda, it came with a lot of expectations of what it would be to be a Black male traveling overseas, and just what was that experience in terms of me questioning what does it mean to be an American? What does it mean to be a Black American overseas, and how people interact with me given the stereotypes and the stigmas that are being projected on the media. So what are some of the challenges you all experience given your own racial identity in these spaces? We can popcorn. It doesn't matter who wants to go.
For me, I'll start first with stereotypes. When I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Guinea of West Africa, it was in 96 and 98. And Guinea borders along the countries of Sierra Leone and Liberia. And there was the war going on between Sierra Leone and Liberia. And there were mass refugees that were coming across the border into Guinea from Liberia. And Peace Corps wanted to limit my placement along some of the border areas so that I wouldn't fall victim to, being mistaken as not an American. And I remembered quite often, even after I was placed at my site, that, traveling throughout Guinea, there's a lot of checkpoints, and they want to check your IDs, and they make you get out of the car and make sure you who you say that you are. And it was clear that I didn't have a West African accent at the time, but so I remembered being pulled out of my taxi and asked to wait to the side because they wanted to confirm who I was. They didn't believe my ID card was who I said I was. And that was a bit of a challenge for me. But it took the people on the bus who were from my village to be able to speak to the police officials to be able to allow me to go through. That was just one of the experiences I had of just dealing with stereotypes. But another experience, once I received my placement in my village at the school where I was assigned, the students that I taught asked so many questions about African Americans in the United States, because the only images they saw of African American men were either they were in prison, they knew how to shoot a gun, they were part of gangs, or they were bald-headed and played basketball like Michael Jordan. Well, I told them I had never been to prison, never wanted to go. I could play basketball, but I couldn't jump. I couldn't dunk. Not unless you brought the rim down for me. But it was being able to have those kinds of realistic, up-close discussions of the diversity of America, because they had the only images they saw were of Black male men in those specific descriptions that I just shared. And I confirmed to them also that, we don't see the passion of Africa, the beauty of Africa in the United States as well. There are so many stereotypes. So I'm here to just bring clarity to everyone's definition, everyone's misunderstanding of what our cultures are, so that we can be able to share that. It helped bring a great understanding of the differences of culture, the differences of continents, the differerences of us. And they were asking why we don't have many other African American males coming. Because, like I said, there were only two minorities in my group, African Americans, a female from Alabama and myself. And I was probably not the first African American that they had met, but for that particular group, the only one. And so being able to share that brought a whole lot of understanding, but it helped to be able to dismiss those stereotypes that even people in the community saw as African American males at the time. So I would further go on to add that, even now I continue to experience in some of my travels in Africa of trying to recognize whether I am from South Africa or I'm from some other country. But it takes me being able to talk and communicate and be able to share my cultural experiences living abroad. So after 14 years of living on the continent now, they pretty much tell me that, no, you're no longer American, you're African now. We're not sure which country, but you're African.
So because I studied abroad so young, I don't think I went into it thinking that I would have to answer questions about being a Black American. It just wasn't on my radar at 16, understandably so. But that would change because I studied abroad in 2001 and landed in Germany 2 days before 9/11. And so that transformed my entire year. I went from being a high school junior to being a representative of the United States. And then also, layered on top of that was what it meant to be a Black American abroad in the middle of, a national crisis. And so I did get the questions about, my perspectives on what the United States was going to do. Did I believe in war? Do you love rap? Is that all you listen to? So those kind of common stereotypes. But that definitely transformed my year, and it alerted me to the fact that I am a Black woman in the world. And I am oftentimes the first Black person they've ever encountered. And so, if anything, it made me step back and gain some perspective on that, and to see that as a badge of honor. Not necessarily a nuisance, but it was an opportunity for me to educate people, for me to inform people, for me to leave a positive experience and imprint, on them of what it meant to be an African American, because oftentimes our voices are not heard, particularly when it comes to international affairs. And so, kind of similar to I think James's experiences is that you get this opportunity to shape people's perspectives, to challenge what they are seeing on TV, on television. And so, I mean, my experiences were not, I can honestly say I haven't had very many negative ones, but that particular experience at 16 really changed my perspectives on what my personal mission was abroad, not just going and kind of soaking up the culture and, getting, being on a scholarship for a year and getting to study, but then also wanting to do some of that cultural work myself and educate others about what it meant to be a Black woman in the world.
Yeah, I would say from my experience, it's definitely been, I would say, somewhat consistent, but also depending on the country. So going back to like the first time that I was out of the country, going to China for a short term abroad, and that was in 2013. And so traveling around with my group within different cities across China, I would get a lot of Obama, right? In terms of like the fact that the first Black president like had on the world, right? So in terms of like that experience, it's like, oh, Obama or basketball player, right? So kind of those traditional kind of, I would say, those molds that maybe some foreigners may have of Americans, in particular, Black Americans, right? And so that was one experience that I had in China. But in the case of India, where I was able to kind of be able to spend more time and get a stronger understanding of the culture, one of the surprises that I had is that I felt that I was able to blend in a little bit more compared to some of my peers, since I was the only Black man within my study abroad program. And so compared to my peers who were white, who stood out a lot in a subcontinent full of other brown folks, me myself being a brown person as well, I would be able to kind of skirt around kind of the stares, and I think kind of just the fascination of just seeing a foreigner as well. So in that experience, it felt, at least for me, like good in terms of like, all right, I don't always have to feel like I'm the foreigner. I can somewhat blend in a little bit too. And then even with my Fulbright experience, I think as well, like really using that as an opportunity to share my culture and kind of move past those kind of traditional narratives, right? In terms of my students, they would come up to me and say like, yo, sir, like spit a rap to us, right? Because that's like kind of their perception of Black people, certain Black people in America, right? Like, you're a rapper, basketball player, whatever the case may be. And so really using my experience in the classroom to talk about kind of the cultural connections that the US and India do have, right? In terms of talking about the impact or the influence more so that MLK had with Gandhi, right? Trying to connect the two cultures and the similar struggles that both folks who are in India had during their independence movement, as well as in the US during the civil rights movement as well too, right? So sharing those aspects, bringing other influences, reading them poetry like Maya Angelou, right? Like doing a Black History Month, like really trying to provide a different perspective on what it means to be an American too. And I would say even from the perspective of our fellows who are coming through the Rangel program and who do become foreign service officers, right? So U.S. diplomats abroad, a lot of times they have instances in which they come into a room to do a presentation and someone says, well, where's the diplomat, right? Like, because they're looking for a certain type of individual. And so in those instances, fellows really use that as an opportunity to kind of break that mold as well too, in terms of like being able to change the perspective on what it means to be a U.S. citizen, what it means to be a U.S. diplomat abroad, and sharing those different experiences that we may have, as well as the different types of mentorship that we do with the fellows to help prepare them for those experiences that they may bring abroad, but also letting them know that this is important, right? To show the world that there isn't just one type of fit for what an American looks like, and to also have our foreign service be reflective of the country and the diversity that we have within the U.S. as a whole as well too.
If I can just jump in, especially Savon shared about his being thought of or being understood as President Obama. I had the same associations of being identified as TD Jakes, and but to allude to his point about diversity in the foreign service, I've been working overseas since 2007 in the capacity of a diplomat, and I remember on many occasions not being even the image of what they saw as a embassy diplomat or a U.S. diplomat was not me. And so the reflection at times when I would walk within my groups or be at the table with diplomatic officials was shocking, in that the only images that they ever saw was not Black and brown images. And so to be able to have someone speak, and let's say in a Francophone country, French fluently, at the table speaking about U.S. government diplomacy or Peace Corps policy or U.S. Embassy mission objectives as it refers to the Peace Corps and other mission objectives, that it was great to be able to see the image of diversity that had not always been the case. I remember when Peace Corps South Africa had its first group to arrive here. It was President Mandela who asked President Clinton for the opportunity for Peace Corps to be able to start a program here. The recruitment reflected primarily on recruiting volunteers that reflected the diversity of America. Mind you, this was during the apartheid session. It was very strategic for our U.S. government, our agency, to be able to recruit the diversity that they did. And I think it helped set the path and set the objectives for our program here, and to be able to see and share the diversity of America and how that we could contribute. And I thought that was a very profound statement that the Peace Corps did when they started the program here. And it continues to remain very relevant in our recruiting process now, as we continue to plan and prepare for our volunteers to return to service.
Thank you for sharing that, James. I'm loving the direction of what this panel is going, because I think we've touched on some really important themes I think anytime we hear about these opportunities, I think the first idea that comes to mind is like, oh, I'm going to be helping a lot of people. But then you find yourself struggling with a lot of these concepts that we've all discussed in terms of identity, navigating that, navigating, how difficult it is to serve in a different cultural environment, right? Different cultural contexts with our own ideas, and how often we come to environments or new spaces with our own perception of what it means to help, and helping from a Western perspective, and how you can run into that brick wall where you realize that it's not being received as you anticipate. So can either of you share about that concept of having a service mindset, but not necessarily understanding the cultural nuances that affect your leadership abroad?
I'll jump back in. Um, I shared that I've been associated with Africa, well, since I was a volunteer, 96. And came back home, taught a couple years, and then started working at the agency, and then got my first assignment with Peace Corps overseas through Cameroon. And I left Peace Corps Cameroon, joined the Centers for Disease Control in Cote d'Ivoire. And then from Cote d'Ivoire, went to Zambia, Zambia back to Cote d'Ivoire to Uganda, and Uganda to here. This has transpired over since 2007 that I've been away from home. And I've noticed that my travels and work from west to east to southern Africa has had some cultural and very profound impacts on my life and my development. And it has also impacted my leadership. And I've come to understand that my work and travels, starting as a spiritual leadership, goes into what I've come to understand and clearly be defined by, in South Africa, this concept of Ubuntu, which means I am because we are. And I've recognized that all of my work on this continent and the person that I am has pretty much been cultivated through this concept of community, this work of being engaged not only with the culture and the communities, but with the families and the staff that I have led and people and friends that I have developed. It's very unique and it's very special. And I don't think that, I know that you don't get that kind of experience staying at home in the US. You have to be able to get from where you are in the United States and be able to see something other than outside of your surroundings. And it's a special process, and it's a process that that involves a lot of patience and missteps and great steps. And I've noticed throughout my entire journey here that this is what overseas communities have been waiting for, to be able to see the diversity of America, to see something different, to experience a culture and people different. Even my growing up in, New Jersey and South Carolina, it was a cultural experience as well. I learned how to say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. And in the South, where I didn't have that in New Jersey, because I learned how to say yes and no. But it's a sense of community and culture that develops a perspective of the person that through this overseas cultural experience. And I'm sure that my colleagues and fellow panelists have seen this the same in their journeys in these different countries. It is a perspective that is just waiting to behold. And again, I encourage everyone to be able to take advantage of this opportunity abroad and to be able to see it from a different perspective and feel yourself grow and adapt.
All right, James, that's actually a great segue to our final question. We're going to be wrapping up our session. Love to hear, in our last session, the last piece we heard was to get your passport. All of us here, we have our passports, we've been abroad. We had a question from a participant on how to join the programs that you all took advantage of, right? And so I'd love to hear from all of you on how you joined the program, and also know for the participants that LeVar and I will be sending out resources to you via email as well.
I can say that the first two important steps that you could take is one, going on the Fulbright website, so us.fulbrightonline.org. There's a wealth of information on there. It's almost overwhelming and at the same time very exciting. So I would start with the website, and then I would also use the website and or contact your international programs office at your university. Every university typically has a Fulbright advisor who is dedicated to helping alums apply for the Fulbright program, and they will be your greatest resource. So I would start with those first two things: going to the Fulbright website and then contacting the Fulbright advisor on your university campus.
Yeah, I would say definitely likewise in the case of the Rangel program, as well as with the Pickering Fellowship, which are both similar in both State Department programs. The websites are rangelprogram.org and pickeringfellowship.org. And I would say alongside those lines, most universities who have fellowship advisors can also provide guidance on how to apply. And so on our website, we have a lot of information in terms of how to be a competitive applicant, as well as like different eligibility requirements. Really the main pieces for our application, and we try to keep it as simple as possible, is that statement of purpose, which I feel like is probably universal to, I would say in the case of our programs, right? In terms of what is your motivation for wanting to be in the Foreign Service or be a Fulbrighter or be in the Peace Corps, right? And then alongside that, just letters of recommendation. And so for those who may still be in undergrad or who have left undergrad and are thinking about joining one of these programs too, I would say really thinking about cultivating those relationships with faculty members as well as other supervisors, and just help them understand the program and like your ambitions and why you want to seek admittance into the program, because those letters of recommendation really help fill a hole that may be left from like with your personal statement, right? They can talk about your character, right, in a way that maybe that you can't, because they are able to observe you either in the workplace or in the classroom. So we have a bunch of information on the websites, but I would echo my colleagues with that, but also thinking about how can you best tell your story about who you are and your motivations. I would say there's some key aspects, and we're in talking and thinking about recommendations too.
For Peace Corps, you can go to www.peacecorps.gov, and it will guide you through the process of applying. There are also recruiters that are assigned to regional areas that are happy to talk to you. I would also add that there are what we call return Peace Corps volunteers, pretty much in every state. They have return Peace Corps volunteers in Washington, D.C., Atlanta, pretty much, and they're happy to talk to you about their experience and help guide you through the process. Many universities now have diplomats and residence programs, and they also have resources within their study abroad offices about Peace Corps. And I think Peace Corps has also started like a Peace Corps prep program in several universities. And so it gives you an opportunity to be able to learn and actually prepare for service through college courses. And so there are many resources out there right now that are available to enlighten you about Peace Corps. And if you look up each country, it tells you about the programs that we have to offer in each country around the world, from Africa to the EMA region to the Inter-American Asian and Pacific. So please check out the website, and I'm happy to even offer myself as a resource to be able to share more about Peace Corps.
Thank you for that, panelists. And I also wanted to add that Peace Corps also has a fellowship program called the Coverdell Fellowship, which I have the pleasure of taking advantage of. So if you're thinking about grad school and you want scholarship and you want a full ride or you want money at any rate, they offer that service where you can go to grad school for free and have opportunities to pursue your education and professional and academic development. So look into that as well. And all of these programs have astronomical implications for our careers. From the opportunities we pursue and who we become in the process, it only enhances the professional experience in the world. So please take advantage of the exhibitors in the booths because they are sharing this information as well. Also, stay tuned for the links that we're going to provide. So when we add that, we also have the Payne International Development Fellowship Program as well. So it's another foreign affairs program that you can also learn about and take advantage of. I want to thank the panelists for such a robust conversation. We tried to make it as ESPN as we possibly can with the chime in and really just show you all that what's possible through these international experiences and how you could take advantage of them and really take your careers to the next level. You will see that there's going to be polls, so please fill out those polls to provide your feedback for this session. You will get a 15-minute break, and the next session will resume at 1:15, and we're going to be looking at Black men in study abroad. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, panelists, for such a great conversation, and we'll see you back at 1:15. Take care.